We're going to jump right into it. I want to introduce today's speaker. Today's speaker is Andrea Baier Petiet. She is an art therapist, a practicing therapist, and she's going to share for you the application, the practice, the technique, the opportunities in this particular domain in psychology. She did her undergraduate work at Grand Valley, and she did her graduate work at the Center for Humanistic Studies. So please welcome today's speaker.
Well, hello, I'm Andrea, and welcome. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really curious how many people are interested in art and psychology, and can you raise your hands for art? Okay, and then psychology? All right, okay, great. Any people interested in putting those two together for art therapy and a career? Okay, great. So I have some handouts here for resources and schools and organizations for art therapy. And when after we're done, you can pick one up, and I also have some cards. So it helps me to look. Please bear with me because I have a little bit of a throat thing going on. So today I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit about my practice and how I do art therapy with clients or expressive arts. I am not a licensed registered art therapist. I want to clarify that. I have a degree in psychology and social work, and I am an artist. So today what we're going to do is a little exercise right away to get to know yourself, your creative side. And then we're going to take a look at the differences and the commonalities between art therapy and expressive arts. We're going to look at the benefits and objectives. We'll do a little bit on a brief history and a little bit of theory about art therapy and expressive arts. And we'll be, like I said before, we'll do some experiential exercises. So before I get into the activity for the creative activity, I want to talk a little bit about the right brain and the left brain, because a lot of times we're told it's right brain dominance or left brain dominance and creativity is right brain. And that is a myth, and it started with probably a study they did on epilepsy in the 60s by Baier. And so they kind of got that notion that there was this right brain, left brain dominance. And in 2013, they kind of debunked that whole myth. At the University of Utah, Jeff Anderson studied 7,000 brains between the ages of 7 and 29 years of age, and they found like there was a lot of activity with both sides of the brain using creativity and problem solving. So we're going to get started right away, and we're going to get right into doing some art therapy. And you notice you have some crayons, and so I'm going to have you choose 2 crayons and put one in each hand. Go over here. So you have your crayons up in the air. I'm going to demonstrate first, and then I'll do it along with you the second time, okay? So you have them both in each hand, and we're going to pretend to draw in the air, and we're going to hum Happy Birthday. You can say it to yourself. So we'll go, and then we're going to be drawing and humming on the blackboard like this. So we're just going to be using your right brain and your left brain. We're going to get our creative juices flowing for this activity. So shall we start? Everybody ready? Okay. Up in the air, we're going to hum. Okay, now on your paper, hum again to yourself. I'll hum for you. Was that fun? Okay, so when people do this, they have all different kinds of experiences. So I'm wondering what this was like for you, if anybody would like to share their experience of just kind of scribbling and kind of getting into making some lines and marks. Anybody? Yes?
I was kind of worried there was a right and a wrong way to do this.
As you saw, there was not a right or wrong way, was there? Yeah. We can really get into that kind of, a lot of people when they do art therapy, they're very concerned about, am I going to do this right or wrong? And, you know, it's okay to make mistakes and to use your mistakes to create things. Any other questions? Any other thoughts on this? Anything you learned about yourself? Okay. Trying to remember what I did with the, oh, there it is. Okay, so what are the differences and what art therapy and expressive arts have in common? And art therapy uses art medias, so like sculpting and painting and drawing and pastels, collage, anything that you could use to create visual arts. That's what art therapy uses. Expressive art uses music and writing and poetry and drama, actually sand play, movement, play therapy. I actually do play therapy. And they both have different histories and they have different theories, but they have the same objectives and benefits. And we're going to go over a lot of the benefits and objectives as I go through the presentation. So, first of all, art therapy is a mental health profession that it integrates counseling and psychology and art. And it's used for assessment. I don't use it in my practice so much for assessment, but I use it more for treatment. And it treats all kinds of different problems that people come in with. Anxiety, depression, mental illness. You can use it with people who have physical illnesses, cancer, infertility. So I work with lots of people in lots of different areas. Actually did for the developmentally disabled, did some classes, and it was very, very interesting to see those young adults get into the art therapy. We actually painted to music one time, and you're going to be using some music today also and doing some art. So that's just, so it reduces stress, it regulates your emotions, it manages behavior. It's really good for interpersonal skills. If you're in a group, and I do a lot of group art therapy, I have in the past, I work with Our Hope, which is a substance abuse program for women in recovery. And I really enjoyed doing those groups with the women. It was a very rich experience. And to see those women grow and change, and so you can use it with substance abuse, and it's regulated by the American Art Therapy Association. So Margaret Naumburg, she was really the pioneer in art therapy. She was a psychologist, artist, educator, and she really believed in symbolic communication, and that comes from the unconscious mind, and we make images from the unconscious mind. And she was known as the mother of art therapy. So this is just a little bit of history. And from about 1940 to about 1970, many of these, right, there was many more, but Margaret, Edith Kramer, Eleanor Ullman, they were the first educators, and they had the first degree program in art therapy. And this is just some facts about when all the different associations were coming into play. I started out in 1986 practicing, and I have one of Edith Kramer's very first books. And I started working with kids at Lutheran Child and Family Services with kids who had a lot of sexual abuse. I was trained in sexual abuse. And a lot of the kids were really struggling with those emotions. And so I used art, and it was very helpful to help them express those emotions, because a lot of times kids don't talk about what they're feeling. They act out their feelings. They misbehave or they get in trouble. So it was a very powerful tool. And back in those days, I didn't know so much about confidentiality. I'd have all their pictures up on the walls, and people would come in and they'd comment on them. Then I realized that was confidential. All the work you're going to see here today, I have permission from my clients to use it and to tell their story. I don't tell names, but I'm going to generally tell you their story and about the art in a story form. So what we want to do for objectives for art therapy or expressive arts is we want a safe environment. We want people to feel really safe and like they're protected. The other objective is you want to not have distractions. So if you're in a group setting or in a therapy session, there aren't very many distractions unless somebody leaves their phone on, which happens once in a while. And what I really like about art therapy is that it creates a distance between the client and the problem. So we'll do a piece of artwork, and then I'll have them put the artwork on the other side of the room or on a chair, and you look at it from a distance. And whatever was going on in here, the thoughts and the emotions, you can take a look at, and you can get a lot of ahas. Oh, that was what was going on. And so I really like it. It helps people feel a lot safer talking about what's going on inside of here. And it's very important for the therapist to be authentic, to be very empathic, so people feel like safe and you can develop trust. Really, therapy is really about the relationship with the therapist and feeling safe and trusting the therapist. I have found over and over again, you can use all different kinds of modalities. If you aren't authentic with your clients, you're probably not going to get very far if you're not real yourself. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to create some safety for you, and we're going to do, this is what I do with my clients a lot in sessions. I do a little meditation, and sometimes I have people draw them. I don't know how much time, will I have time for people to do this? Okay. And I'm having you do this because some of the artwork you're going to see may be a little bit disturbing. And I want you to feel comfortable and safe in here. When we create this, we're going to be creating a safe place in your mind's eye. And the reason I have people do this, and I'm having you do this, is if you feel like you're getting dysregulated or something is emotional for you, you can go back to the safe place in your mind's eye. So if you start to feel like, oh, this is upsetting me, you can go into your head and go back to this place. So it's a coping skill that I'm teaching you today. So I'm going to have you close your eyes and just relax and take some nice deep breaths and kind of imagine the waves on an ocean coming in and going out, coming in and going out. And breathe from your lower abdomen up through your throat and your nose. And now that hopefully you're relaxed, I'd like you to imagine a place where you feel totally safe. It could be an ocean, a beach scene. It could be a park. It could be your home. It could be your bedroom. You could be walking out in nature. Think about what kind of weather is outside. Is it snowing? Is it raining? Is there sun? Who's in the safe place with you? Are you alone? Are you with people? Are there animals around? Flowers, trees. So when you're ready, and you have this place in your mind's eye, you can open your eyes. And if you'd like to share your experience and what that was like, some people really want to share their experience. Some of my clients are very open about their experiences. Other people don't want to share them. So would you like to share them? Anybody? Okay, yes.
Mine is the Grand Canyon with trees.
The Grand Canyon with trees. That sounds very beautiful. Anybody else? Yes.
Mine is walking through the woods in the summer when it's shady with a little bit of sun poking through with my dog.
Robin said walking through the woods with her dogs. It's shady,
Sunny day.
Sunny day.
shady in the woods with a little bit of sun.
a little bit of sun coming down. I've been there, done that. That's really a nice scene. Anyone else? Yeah.
Mine is when I'm at my DSC and I'm teaching all my preschoolers, and they're all running around and laughing.
And your name is?
Olivia.
Olivia said when she's teaching preschool and all her students are down and they're laughing and having a good time. Yes.
Remembering when I was younger and going to Tiger Stadium in the summer.
And your name is?
Alec.
Alex said when he went to Tiger Stadium when he was younger. Anything else?
Just how nice it was outside usually in the summer.
How beautiful it was in the summertime. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Mine is at a music concert, like summer festival in like the summertime.
A music concert in the summertime, and your name is?
Candace.
Candace. Thank you, Candace. Anyone else? Yes. Oh, I love that. When the beach and the summer's setting. Yes. And your name? Ulysses. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. So, I'm glad to hear you have your safe places. The next slide is you're going to see is from a child that I started working with when he was about 6.5. And he was acting out at school. He was getting in a lot of fights with his peers. His grades were not doing so well. And he was doing a lot of arguing with his mother and his stepfather. And he had been, his parents were divorced. And he would go on visits when he was younger to see his biological father. And during that time, there was some abuse that happened. And I work with a lot of cases where there's trauma and abuse and divorce. I work with kids from as young as 3 all the way up to, I work to 60, 70-year-old people. And I work with teens. And so anyway, this young boy was having some difficulty, and when he came in, and we had wondered about, he wouldn't talk about the abuse, except that his father had locked him out of the house, and he was like hungry, and so we know there was some neglect and there was a little bit of physical abuse, but I didn't know all the details. So sometimes when I'm concerned about a kid who might be sexually abused or physically abused, I'll read him a book about good touch and bad touch. And actually his first picture is he traced the cover of when I asked him, I read him the book, and then I asked him about where were you touched in a good way or a bad way. And he never went into details. And what the beauty of art therapy is, you don't have to know all the details. It's just that they're expressing what happened to them. So this is his picture. And so he had traced that outline of that body, and he just said, this feels bad, and this feels good. Now, because he was so young, I decided not to ask him more in detail about any of this because it wasn't really necessary. So from there, I said to him, well, what would you have liked to have happened? This must have really hurt you. You looked, this didn't feel so good, most of the body. And he said, I wish I would have said stop. So I do this a lot with clients who have been abused. I'll ask them, because I ask them, what would you have liked to have been different? Because I think it's empowering to be assertive. And a lot of times we're in the fight, flight, and freeze mode when we're having trauma. And it's very difficult to be assertive or to fight back. And he said he wished he would have said stop. And you can see, like the squiggly lines, I really believe he's really depicting the fear and where he felt that fear in his body. So he was doing a couple of things in this drawing. He was expressing his fear, but he was also being assertive. Shortly after this, maybe a week or two later, he finally started getting in touch with his anger. Remember, this is a kid who was acting out and getting in fights, right? And so we really wanted to, I wanted to have him express his anger in a really positive way. So one day we were talking about anger, and I think I play feeling basketball with kids. And so I take a basketball hoop, and I'll have them just take a ball, and they'll pick a feeling, and they'll, like, I feel sad because it's, my dog passed away or something. And so we were talking about anger, and I said to him, if your anger were an animal, what would it be? And he decided to draw this shark, and this is, I think it's a really neat shark for a 7-year-old. And he encased the shark in this red anger. And what the beauty of this is that it's a safe way for him to express that anger. Shortly after this, he wasn't acting out so much. Does anybody have a question at this point? Okay. So now we're going to go into the history of expressive arts. And about 1970, expressive arts came into being at the Lesley College of Graduate School in Cambridge. And Paulo Nil, he formed the first international network of expressive art training centers. And Natalie Rogers in 1984 founded the Person-Centered Expressive Art Institute out in California. And a friend of mine attended her. She's actually still alive, Natalie Rogers. She's the daughter of Carl Rogers, who is empathic listening and client-centered therapy. He's the founder of that. And you can actually see YouTube videos of Natalie practicing expressive art therapy if you go online. So what are the expressive arts? Well, they're professionals. They're counselors and psychologists like myself, social workers. Some are licensed expressive art therapists. Some are art therapists. And again, they just combine the visual art and also different modalities of expression, writing, poetry, drama, music, along with counseling and psychology. Also, with expressive arts, they really focus on the process of creation and imagination. And there's 4 principles: expression, imagination, active participation, and the mind-body connection. And when people are doing expressive arts, they'll just get this awareness, oh my gosh, that's why da-da-da, that's how come, like, for example, I had a woman who was, she was going through a divorce, and I asked her what she felt like, and, she drew a picture of herself in the middle of the page, really tiny. And I said, well, where's your support system? Who's around you? And she went, oh, I don't have very many people I share this with. And so that was something we became aware of she needed to work on, is to develop that support to get through that issue of being in divorce. Because we need a lot of people to heal, to support us when we're in healing process. So the benefits are of art therapy and expressive arts. It helps us recognize our feelings, our needs, issues, and conflicts. It helps us solve problems. We develop self-understanding, self-love, security. We take a lot of risks. I mean, even when people are drawing stick figures in my office, they're taking a risk. They're really putting themselves out there. They're putting their emotions out there. So, and we're also having limit setting because we're drawing on a piece of paper like you will be today, but there's boundaries on that paper. So it makes it safe. So those limits, and there's directions. Like when I'm working in a group, when I work with the substance abuse women, I gave them all directions about what we were going to do that day, but also gave them rules for the group. Because a lot of times when you're doing group work, people come in with agendas, like maybe they weren't getting along with the lady next to them downstairs in the kitchen, but they come upstairs and they're going to be doing artwork. Well, I set the rules very clearly that we're not going to be talking about what happened in the kitchen that day. So it's important to have the rules and the expectations of what's going to happen in the group when you do an art therapy, or any really group that you do with people. And the other piece I really like about expressive arts is it's very helpful for people who aren't very verbal and have difficulty talking about what happened to them. So I probably should go back here. So this is the next piece of work I'm going to show you is a woman I've been working with. She's about 23, and she's in my practice because she was experiencing anxiety, but she's been going through a lot of job changes lately. And the reason I'm bringing her piece up because it really is about expressing feelings and resolving conflicts, how her piece of art therapy worked. So she came in and she was very angry. She had lost a job. She only been in the job about 2 months. And a new person was hired on, and he had a friend who he wanted in her position. So she was eliminated very unfairly, didn't even have a review or anything like that. And so she was very angry and very upset. And when he gave her notice, he said, "I hope you don't think I'm a monster." So that makes it really hard to even feel angry toward that person when they're saying, "Please don't be angry with me." But she was very angry, but she had to keep her cool. And not only did she have to keep her cool, she had to train the person who was taking her position. So she was very, very angry. So she came in, and one of the exercises I had her do was I said, "If your anger were a color, what would it be?" And she said red. Can everybody see that? Okay. And then I asked her, and I went through all the senses. And remember, the senses are on the right side of the brain, and it helps you get to emotion. So I worked with the senses, and I said, "What is the smell of your anger?" And she said, "It smells like burnt plastic." And I said, "What does your anger taste like?" And she said, "It tastes bitter. And it looks like spikes, and it sounds like a whistle blowing, and my anger is boiling." I mean, she was so angry. And I said, "Where does this anger come from?" Because I think it's really important to understand where our emotions come from. And she said, my anger comes from getting fired without a second chance." So then I said to her, because she was like shaking by this point, I said, "How about we get some of that anger out?" And I had her scribble on a piece of paper, and she was at a desk, and she was just going to town. I thought, my God, she's going to go through this desk. She was just scribbling and scribbling and scribbling. And you can just see the intensity of the anger there. So I don't want to leave my client in an angry state before they walk out the door. And there's also a problem about how to deal with this boss who fired her, right? So I said to her, "What is the opposite of anger? What feeling, what emotion would that be?" And she said, "Calm." So we went through calm. And this is a really good exercise for you, even for yourself to do. If you're having an emotion, you can go to the other side of the emotion. If it's a negative emotion, then you can go to the other side and go through all the senses too. So you can use this as a coping skill also. And so I said, "What color is calm?" And she said, "It's a green, light green." And then she said, "It smells like vanilla. And it tastes like mango. And it looks flat. And it sounds like rainfall. And it feels like floating. And it comes from knowing that bad will pass. This too shall pass." And she remembered someone had shared this information with her one time, and it was a very comforting thing for her to remember that quote. So now she's sitting in the chair and she's really relaxed. So I got her from. So then I said, can you draw me a picture of your calm? So she drew this picture of calm, and she spent a lot of time working on this. You know, it looks very simple, but if you notice there's blue and green and it's kind of going in the, she tried to get the circle as perfect as she could get it. And that was her calm. So then there was still the issue about the boss and how she was going to be leaving the job in 2 days, and she was then she started feeling a little bit angry again after she drew the calm. I thought, okay, we're going to need to problem solve about how she can be assertive addressing this problem. And I said, you know, let's brainstorm. Let's think about, would you be comfortable talking to this guy? She goes, no, about your feelings and how you're feeling kind of like it was unfair. I said, well, what if you decided to write a letter? And she decided that would be a very good idea. So she was going to write him about how she felt it was unfair, how it went down. And so she had her voice about what had happened to her. And now this was a really important thing for her because other issues in her life, she didn't have a voice. So this is really good in the process of therapy because in this situation that isn't as tense as some of the stuff that happened in her past, she now has a voice. She's learning how to use her voice. She's learning how to be assertive. So I felt like she did some really good work that day. So there's more benefits of art therapy and expressive arts, and it helps us, you know, with perceptual abilities, fine motor skills, self-esteem. It really helps increase self-esteem. Again, emotions, conflicts, thoughts. The whole mind-body thing. And a lot of times it promotes hope. You know, like in the last slide we saw, that's hopeful that I can now become assertive. I now have a voice. I can heal. I can start to develop coping skills. Any questions? Okay. So I'm going to give the next slide. Let's see here. Okay. I've got to go back. I'm going to focus now the next client, and we're going to focus more on the mind and the body and how I work with the mind and the body in art therapy. And I've been doing this exercise for probably 10 years now. A lot of times people come in, this is a girl who was about 13 years old, and she was having difficulty in school. Her grades had dropped. She was a real smart kid, but her grades were dropping. Her parents were going through a divorce. Again, I don't know if there's abuse going on or not, but I know she's acting out, and she's fighting a lot with her family. And so I asked her to, I do a little meditation with this, I have this little gingerbread guy, and I ask people to focus on their head in relationship to the issue. Like, so you're going through this divorce, and what feelings and what emotions do you think are in your head area? And if those are a feeling, what color would that feeling be? What shape would that be? So I go through the whole body, and then they come up with images, and on the next slide we will see what she came up with. And so she mostly had color, some shapes, and sad, mad, hurt, stop, black, depression, I would imagine. No, fear. Now, I don't know what any of this means. And when I work with a person, I don't interpret their art. I let them interpret it themselves, because then I'm putting what's on inside of me, what's getting stirred up in me, then I'm putting on to them, and I don't want to do that. So I want them to speak from what's going on for them. So then I asked her to do some writing about the feelings. Oh, before I did that, again, I had her scribble out those feelings, because they were pretty intense feelings. And she used all the different colors of all the different feelings. And then I asked her if she would write out what she had those feelings about. And she said, I feel sad that what my mom is going through. And her mom was going through this custody battle. I'm worried about school and my grades. So she actually started to, then we had, because before that, she wasn't talking about her grades and how worried she was, and so we couldn't do any problem solving around that, or she's worried about what other people think of me. Remember, she's 13 and she's in middle school, and that's a common developmental task, our self-esteem and what other people think about us, but also with the added thing of divorce. Well, what are people going to think of my family and that's breaking up? She lived in a very small town, and so it was a lot of people knew everybody else's business. And I'm scared about my future. What's going to happen? Where am I going to live? Who am I going to be living with? My mom, my dad? I'm worried about my dad. And I'm scared for my siblings. So this is how we got from what was going on in her mind and her body, and she could start to identify, then we could start working through some of these issues for her more directly. So we're going to talk about more benefits. And so, as you just saw on that last slide, it allows the unconscious to become conscious. She probably wasn't even aware of she was afraid for her siblings. It was just jumbled up inside her head, like all those scribbles on the paper. So she became clearer on what was going on for her. It was also comforting and soothing just to know what was happening in her life, just knowing what we needed to work on. It told a story. And the other benefits of art therapy is that it uses the whole brain in trauma, which includes the right brain and the left brain, includes other parts of the brain, but I'm not a scientist and I'm not going to get into all those different parts of the brain. But trauma can be physical or it can be psychological. So you can have somebody who's in an accident and be traumatized, or maybe they're not. It depends on how difficult that accident was, if they saw things that were very atrocious or not. War, illness, loss, bullying, and any other type of abuse can be traumatic for a person. So what's wonderful about art therapy is it treats the whole brain, the right brain and the left brain. And what happens during a traumatic incident is that the left brain goes totally out to lunch. It stops functioning. You have the amygdala, it's going into fight, flight, or freeze, and the left brain shuts down, and the right brain records in little bits and pieces what is happening through the senses. So, when people come in and they have PTSD, they might be having a dream and they might be seeing the same thing over and over, like the same car circling down, or they may hear a song and it reminds them of some other kind of abuse. So different things are triggered in that right brain with PTSD. According to Kathy Malchioni, she has written a lot of articles and presents nationwide on art therapy in children and trauma and violence. She's a remarkable lady. And she says art therapy is healing because it increases the communication between the two hemispheres. And it grows new neurons, and it can change the maladaptive behaviors that we have, and we can create new pathways in the brain. So, for example, instead of freezing, like my client, with the calm and the anger, a new pathway would be developing assertion skills. And that would create a new pathway in the brain. And there's been a ton of research done in the last 20 years. It's very impressive. Neuroscientists have really confirmed that the brain has the biologically innate capacity to grow new neurons. And that's just kind of a repeat of what I just said. And then Kathy says, neurobiology and current research on trauma have redefined our understanding of children's experiences. She works mostly with kids. through recent findings on art and the brain and explains why art therapy is a game changer in trauma intervention. And it's really exciting to, when you see a person work through a piece of trauma or something bad that happened to them and come out hopeful and healed. And I think that's why I keep doing therapy, is because I can see people and the changes that they make. Okay, before I get into this is, so talking about trauma, the next slide you're going to see of the art therapy is from another 13-year-old I work with, was in school, was being teased. And her mother and father weren't real involved at first. You know, they were just kind of listening to her, and the school wasn't really kind of listening to her about being teased and stuff. But then finally they did hear her because she was having a lot of PTSD, traumatic experiences, and she was afraid like to walk into buildings or afraid to go to church. She was afraid to go places. And so they brought her into counseling, and I asked her, she was being teased by a group of kids, not just one kid, it was a group of kids. And I asked her if she could draw what she was feeling when she was being teased. So you can see that it's pretty constricted in a circle, and I think there are feelings of depression and sadness, she said. And one of the things you're going to notice in this piece of work is that there's little dots all around, and that's throughout all the different pieces of art that she did in the sessions. And I believe they represent the people who were teasing her. There was at least 5 or 6 kids who were teasing her at the same time. And the next session she came in, and she, again, it's more constricted. She was, you know, drawing some feelings about her experience, more depression, more sadness, some anger. And then the third session, she came in and she painted this. And there's a change happening here. It went from very restricted to a circle, to a square. Now we've got all this movement going on, just by expressing the feelings about what it was, the experience of being teased. And again, you see those little, you can actually, they have faces now, the kids. Then one day she came in, I didn't know she was going to do this, and this is a paper bag, you know, one of those you get at the grocery store. And she came in and she had painted this bag all in red. And it almost looks like there's a little face, there's like a blue, and you know, then there's a squiggly line and 2 dots up there, and sure looks like an angry face to me. And she described it as her anger. So this was a huge piece of work for her, because up to this point she could not say she was angry, and she kept blaming herself that it was her fault that she was being teased. And she was an overachiever, this girl. She had won awards, and I don't know why these kids were just picking on her. And so she came in with this bag, and inside of the bag were all of the things that these kids were telling her. So these are the messages she was getting over and over and over again. And at one point, there were 2 boys, and they said to her that they were going to rape her. And that's when finally the family pressed charges, and she was out of school by then. And so it was, you know, she's walking around with interjecting all of these messages. So you can imagine what this girl's self-esteem was like. And then she started talking about the feelings that she had in relationship to those messages. And she wrote down she was scared. Will I ever get over this? Is it me? She really questioned if it was herself. And then she said pissed. I'm really angry. And she also still felt a bit depressed. Am I the things that I was called? So she still has that questioning if it was her fault. So then I asked her to do some writing about those feelings, and she says, I'm having a very hard time not blaming herself. I've told her over and over again, this is not your fault. You know, you didn't do anything to cause this teasing. And then she says, is it my fault I got bullied and threatened to be raped? So she was still questioning that at that point. And I believe we did some more artwork, and she finally did resolve that it wasn't her fault. But it took a little while after this session. We did some other artwork, and I don't have those pieces of artwork with me, but I did have permission to use these. So this is the very ending here, and what I'm going to be having you do is listening to some music, and you're going to be drawing to the music. And so you have your art supplies. We have enough time to, yeah. And so I'm going to have you close your eyes and just listen to the music. And pay attention to what you're feeling in your body. You know, are there any awarenesses in your body? How is your stomach feeling? How is your head feeling? Your arms and your leg? Is this music making you feel antsy, or is it making you feeling relaxed and calm? And then I'm going to have you, once you've done your drawing, I'll have you just write down a few sentences. You can title your drawing. It's really good when people title their drawings. It says a lot about what was going on for you. And then at the end, then we'll ask questions. So everybody have their paper and crayons out? Okay. And I press on. Go forward.
Yep. Just like regular.
This? Oh. Thank you. Can everybody hear that? So just draw to the music, whatever comes up for you, lines, shapes. It doesn't have to be realistic. It can be abstract. Use the sides of your crayon. Use the tip of your crayon. it still be playing if I do that?
Find out. Do you want it to play?
It's almost done. Thanks. Well, it was really fun to watch you draw, and it seemed like you all were into it. It was kind of exciting to see you. So what I'm going to have you do now is just write down on the back of your paper with your crayon or pencil just a few sentences that explains your drawing, title it, and then also what it was like for you to do this exercise. What colors and did you notice that related to your feelings? Did you notice that you used more yellow or red? Did it portray any thoughts or images that are on your mind on a daily basis? And what did you learn about yourself? So you can just read those and do some writing. Should I go ahead?
I learned from Susan many years ago to have the courage to go beyond what you think is long enough.
Okay. Okay, thanks. I like her too. She's a good person. I think so. Okay, it looks like a lot of you have wrapped this up, so I thought we could discuss what it was like for you to do this exercise. Did you learn anything about yourself? Anybody like to volunteer or show their picture? Yes.
For me, it's kind of difficult to
So you felt a little bit unsure of yourself. Be- 'cause- so you went out of your comfort zone. That's a good thing. Thanks for doing it. It's really positive. Yes. You went into what? You went into your comfort zone. Wow. So because everything's so crazy around you and it gave you a chance to relax. Wonderful. Yes.
I felt that it was hard to pinpoint exactly what I was feeling when it started, and so I really had to close my eyes and focus on the music and kind of just forget like people around me. I don't know, it was just really hard to do at first, be able to express yourself through art. It's so abstract to what I've normally been used to.
So you took a risk and you actually got to focus and you did it. Great. It was a hard thing, but you did it. Yeah. Yes. You enjoy Beethoven. Oh. Thanks. You found you got lost in the music and drawing? Cool. So you just really got into a creative, meditative state, into the zone, huh? The flow of creativity. That's neat. Yes.
I found that my mind was wandering a lot, so it was actually kind of hard for me to draw because I started thinking about other stuff as the music was playing.
And that happens sometimes when we're in, because art is like a meditative state, and sometimes it's really hard to focus when we're meditating or doing art. Our mind does drift off. How'd you get back in to do it?
I just was doing stuff. I just kept making sure that I was doing something the whole time, but my picture just kind of shows it, I think.
Well, this isn't about art. It's about the process and about creativity. So the fact that you took the risk and did it, that's great. Yes.
I kind of thought it like reminded me of everyday life, like how, the music was kind of just like it all like bleeds into each other, and like I think a lot of us have like really fast-paced lives, with a lot of us are working and going to school. So I don't know. I called mine going through the motions. So.
Going through the motions, because you have such a chaotic life, and this helped you really kind of.
And something, okay, I swear to God, like I didn't even think about this until afterwards, but I had all these X's like on my drawing,
Yeah.
and like right now my boyfriend is in boot camp, and I've been waiting for him to come home, and I started thinking about it, and I was like, what? It's kind of like the calendar days, like marking them down,
Oh,
you know?
so she has X's on her paper.
Yeah.
Can everybody hear her? Yeah. Okay. So I don't have to repeat it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So when's he come back?
May 1st.
May 1st. Okay. Yes.
I feel like in high school I took a lot of art classes because it was so easy to just like let all the stress away. And like this is my second year of college, so it's like everything there's one way to do everything and it has to be done the right way and on time and everything like that. And like I learned that I have anxiety and I got diagnosed with anxiety, so like refreshing, like when you said you feel butterflies when you asked to like start it, and I didn't know what to do because everybody says, here's the directions, do it this way. And then you said just do whatever you want, and I was like, well, that doesn't feel right because I'm in a college setting doing something where, there's no right way to do one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So it felt a little bit freeing.
yeah, it felt like I was back in just art class in high school and not caring too much. So, about what, the specific, assignment, so.
Well, I'm glad you got some peace in this class, and I think college is very stressful, and there are so many requirements and so many resources and time restrictions. So I'm glad you had some inner peace, and you can use this activity anytime. You can play music and just draw, and you can use some of the other things that were on here, like the feeling, and then going to the other side of the feeling. So, anybody else want to share? Yes.
I was just kind of waiting with the music, listen to the music, the rhythm, and like slow down, and faster, and so it's kind of wavy around,
Uh-huh.
just kind of doodling around based on the music, that rhythm,
Uh-huh.
slowly and faster. I even
Oh, how cool.
Kind of like just relaxing, you know.
Uh-huh.
Just, I don't know. I feel like it's you can by listening to this music, you can feel like you just put everything else that bothers you, just kind of leave it out and just be able to
Uh-huh.
focusing on this, you know, just relax, I guess.
It was very relaxing, and you even imagine people dancing and flowing, and how cool is that? So you had some imagery.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Just kind of along with this role, but it was very peaceful. I liked it because they're like being a college kid and stuff and working, and it's very chaotic and stuff. But just knowing that that peace, kind of how you first had us go into that like that safe place, and along with the music, just knowing that the peace and safety comes from within. So
Yeah.
often we're looking on outside our friends and our schools and our families to provide that safety and that peace, but in reality it comes from within us first. And so just that reminder, and I drew a picture and I titled like comes from within, just knowing that. So it was this, I like that exercise, it was fun, so thank you.
Oh, neat. Her picture was peace coming from within, and how much, that we have that peace within us all the time. And we keep looking for outside sources, but it's really in here. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
I had to stay within the parameters, even though there were none.
Okay.
There were circles, which turned into a smiley face, but then the writing was everything adds up to nothing. I swear it does. Just always look for that next thing that's real important. I have to put all my energy into it, and then it's the next thing. It all, and it's just amazing. Everything adds up to nothing. Because we're always, I don't know if we are, but you're always looking for that next thing, and you're working really hard, you know, crazy at it, and then there's the next thing, and then the next thing, and just keep going at the next thing.
So is that what the music kind of represented to you, going to the next thing, the next thing?
Right? Everything adds up to nothing. Because it feels so important, but in the end, it's not really.
So at the end, it's really not all that important. Like, what will it be like from 100 years if I make this mistake today? What's it going to matter, right? So what if I make a mistake? And I think that's what art therapy is about. If we make a mistake or what we think is a mistake, it doesn't really matter. We can use that and change it and problem solve. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Yes.
I just found that I was drawing something abstract, but I really quickly started to assign literal meanings to everything I was drawing, and then kind of working with those meanings, but drawing more abstract things. So I was like analyzing it the whole time,
Okay. You got it.
bringing those meanings out and then adding to the composition.
So did that help you find out things about yourself you didn't realize, or what was going on for you
It's kind
today,
of
or?
an illustration of what's on my mind right now.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I think we have to, do we need to wrap it up? Okay. We have plenty of time for questions.
Questions about the presentation, about art therapy, being an art therapist, career opportunities, educational pathways, more insight into the clients that were shared. So we've got a good 15 minutes.
Yes.
How do you think job opportunities are in for art therapy in the state of Minnesota?
The occupational handbook. I didn't look that up. I'm really sorry, but you can probably find out in the occupational handbook. And I do have a list of schools and organizations that could probably tell you what the future is for that occupation. It's a pretty new field. So, and I think they use a lot of art therapists in hospitals, and now with the aging and substance abuse as a mental illness. Yep. Yes.
Is art therapy used other places in the world?
Yes, it's actually, if you, there's a lot of neat YouTube videos online, and you can actually see where they've gone into other countries. They work with people. I was thinking of showing some of those videos, but would take too much time. But they have gone into war countries, and they work with the children. And these kids can't speak English, but they put their experiences on paper, and drew them, and it was like very relieving for them. So yes, they use it all over the world. There's an international art therapy organization also. Yes.
Have you ever done any work with the music therapy part of it?
I don't play any instruments. I just have musicians in my family. But I use the music. I have played music and have people draw like I've had you to do today. Are you interested in music therapy?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, you're a musician then.
I'm not actually.
Oh, okay.
Not, no. But I really do love music, and I found for myself that is one thing that has always helped me when I've actually had issues with anxiety as well. And I find that music helps keep me calm a lot of times and helps me kind of sort through my thoughts when I'm feeling that way. So I'm just generally.
Yeah, there's a music therapy program at the Franciscan Center, and there's some music therapy professionals that will work with you. I know two of them, and so if you could just go online and look up the Franciscan Center, and they have some wonderful concerts there. They do a lot of music and a lot of art there. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, with this art therapy and how would you determine that the accuracy of what the people thinking by what they're drawing?
How accurate is what they're thinking to what they're drawing?
By what they're drawing? Yeah, like, just based on a picture, really, can you tell what I was thinking, what's my problem is?
I don't, some people use, like I said earlier in the presentation, some people use art therapy for an assessment. I very rarely do that. I might have a kid draw their family and it kind of gives me an idea, but I don't interpret that. I have the child interpret it for me because they might have like the father, the kid, the two kids and the father over here and the mother over here, but really they're closer to the mother. And so I can't really, and if I just looked at the drawing, I would interpret it from what I see. So,
Okay, maybe I can ask another way.
okay.
I was trying to ask about what if they don't even know what they're drawing? Like they can't explain their drawing, they were just doing this.
I've had that happen. And so we don't talk about it. It's okay not to talk about it. Well, whatever it was, they got that out on paper. So if it was some kind of an emotion, I've had, especially this one young girl I work with I worked with her from 11 to 13, and she hardly spoke at all. But she did a whole lot of painting in the session, and she wouldn't talk about it. Finally, I could get her to write about her drawings, but she didn't communicate very much. I mean, she could talk, but she didn't want to talk about what was going on inside. So, but her behavior started to change. And she started to because she was very introverted, and she started to make friends. She started to connect to other people just by getting out whatever emotion her family was going through a custody battle. So whatever was going on inside of her, she could get out. And we didn't even have to talk about it. That's what I really like about art therapy. You don't always have to talk. So did that help answer your question? Okay. Anybody else? Yes? I think you would go online and check and see what the requirements are. I'm sure a psychology background for sure, and you have to take a number of art classes. So if you have an art major or a psychology major, you're most likely to get accepted to an art therapy program. So having that background in art and psychology or one or the other would be helpful, I would think, to have a portfolio too of your drawings. Yes?
Are there certain areas where art therapy works better than other therapies?
Yeah. I think it works better than talk therapy a lot of the time. I use a lot of different frames of reference when I'm doing art therapy. I do a lot of client-centered therapy. I do a lot of empathic listening when I'm working with someone. I reflect their feelings a lot when they're talking to me. Sometimes I do cognitive behavioral therapy along with the art therapy. Does that help? Yeah. Does it? Yes.
Did you say where you're working right
I work for Psychology Associates of Grand Rapids, and I've been there about 8 years. I work for probably 3 or 4 different agencies, 3 different private practices. So I've been at this present place. I have some cards up here if you're interested, if you want to contact me or have any other questions. I've actually had students come in and talk to me if they wanted to pursue a career in art therapy. So I'd be glad to talk with you and spend some time with you if you'd like individually. Oh, thank you. Anything else? Well, you were a fun group of people and very interested in what I was sharing, so it was very pleasurable to be here. Thank you.